Second reason that I think you all should give the Bible a chance. You should read the Bible, even if you don't find it particularly interesting at first. I guarantee you will eventually. But just for the sake of not being culturally ignorant. Okay? None of us want to be an ignoramus. But for some reason, most of our culture today does not consider knowledge of Scripture to be necessary for being an erudite individual. Listen, the Bible has had such a massive influence, especially over Western culture, but not just Western culture. It's had such a huge influence over human culture worldwide that to be ignorant of the Bible is to be, well, ignorant. Okay? You don't want to be ignorant. You want to be considered to be witty and wise and to know stuff, right? Well, if you want to be considered someone who is in the know, you should know the Bible, a little bit at least. You should be acquainted with it. One of the things that has I might make you feel uncomfortable here, because I know that many of you who are taking this course have never cracked open a Bible in your whole life. Some of you have gone to church your whole life and you've never really read the Bible. Some of you haven't gone to church, and so you've just never really had an opportunity to get acquainted with it. When I graduated from public school. Graduated from high school in 1995. That's not that long ago, okay? And when I graduated when I was going through my public school education, we were required to read the Bible, not as a religious text. There wasn't indoctrination going on. They were holding to the separation between church and state, as they should. But it was just considered to be, something that a well-educated person was familiar with, was some of the stories from the Bible, especially the King James Version, just so that we could hear this influential text that loomed so large over Western culture, in English-speaking culture, for now 400 years. Okay? And we've lost that heritage, and so we can't understand what previous generations, when they make these allusions, we don't understand what they're talking about. One of the things that's been most tragic to me, teaching this course and courses like it over the years, is to realize that when I make an offhand comment about someone like David and Goliath, or Daniel in the lion's den, or Jonah in the belly of the whale, these sorts of stories, which I grew up with, and I heard these stories on my mother's lap, that my students just don't know what I'm talking about. They've never heard these wonderful, wonderful stories. And I'm not talking about the most important and difficult texts of the Bible. I'm just talking about the fun stories in the Bible. The folk tales, really, people aren't familiar with them anymore. And that's tragic. It actually is a mark of not being educated, not to know these stories, because they were such an important fiber of culture up until, really, the last few generations. Christendom at its zenith, okay? So consider this. So Christendom, when it was at its peak, I'm not talking about Christianity, I'm talking about Christendom, where, you had kings and queens who are Christian, identifying as Christian at least, even empires, the Christian Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, that at its zenith, Christendom stretched all the way across Europe, through North Africa, before Islam, okay? So actually the Byzantine Roman Empire, the Christian Roman Empire in the 500s, Christianity was making its way into the northernmost parts of Europe. All of North Africa was covered, from all the way in Algeria, all the way through Egypt into Palestine, and then into the East. Even the Nestorian Christians were taking the gospel into China in the beginning of the Middle Ages. And so you're talking about, this is not just a European thing. This isn't just a, dead white man sort of thing. The Bible was a central text. Ethiopia has been a Christian nation since nearly the beginning. Okay, Armenia, Central Asia, Georgia, these countries in Central Asia have been Christian nations since the 4th, 5th century. And the Bible is a central part of those texts, of their culture. And so if you don't know the Bible, then you are culturally illiterate. I'm not ashamed to say that. It's just the truth. Because the Bible was the focal point of all of these cultures. And you can't understand literature written by all of these peoples. You will have a very shallow perspective of human culture if the Bible isn't a part of that perspective. So the Bible will give you depth. It will give you. It will make you more erudite. You'll be more charming in conversation if you're familiar with the biblical text. You just will be. Even apart from Christian culture, to understand the Quran. So Islam is also much of Islam is derived from the Bible. Many of the stories in the Quran are retellings of stories from the Bible. And so you won't understand Muslim culture, not let alone Christian culture, if you don't know the Bible very well. Being an expert on a tiny sliver of knowledge that might help you make money does not make you educated. And I know that many of you are probably taking courses at Newman because you're trying to get a degree that's eventually going to give you a livelihood. And I'm not against that. But please understand, if that's all you're interested in, that's not an education. Okay, that's training. And you can train a dog. You're a human being, and human beings need to be educated. And part of that means knowing what's in the Bible.